Assalamu alaikum and welcome. So my dear friends, today the video that we are going to put forward is going to be an educational one, but it's going to be a different kind of education. This is meant for those who are thinking of becoming Canadians. How do you go about becoming a Canadian? And that's what we're going to be discussing in this short video. And for this purpose, I have with me a very special guest, Mr. Zia Naqvi, who is a very well-established and a very successful immigration consultant based in Toronto. Now, what I want to start off this discussion with is basically the basic concept. What should you have in mind when you want to come to Canada? That is one of the first ideas that we're going to ask Mr. Zia to put some light on.
Okay, thank you very much for taking me in. And I do appreciate that I have this opportunity to explain few things to your viewers. As you said, like when a family decides or wish for moving to Canada as an immigrant, they are excited, they are very happy, and they want to get it done as soon as possible, things like that. And they have a lot of misconceptions, a lot of stories that they have heard from friends, families, neighbors. And so it's all convoluted in their mind. So what you need to, or they need to understand first is, unlike the third world countries, Canadian immigration system is transparent and it's fair. Right. Transparent means that everything is known to the public. No, nothing is secret, nothing is hidden, and the overall process is fair. So you expect least amount of things that could be unfair in the system. So have faith in the system. That's the first step, I guess.
What a positive connotation. That's exactly how everything, in good faith should be begun, right? Have faith in the system. After all, you're trying to become a Canadian. So you should start by having faith in the Canadian system. Now, we've seen a lot in the past few years and decades that a lot of the first world countries that were previously inviting immigrants to come in have sort of pulled back. They don't really welcome immigrants with open arms anymore. Canada is now a rarity because it still welcomes immigrants. Why is that, Mr. Zia? Why does the Canadian government still welcome immigrants?
Yeah, as you know, the first world countries are mostly the countries which are essentially based on immigration because they did not exist few hundred years before. So most of their population is essentially immigrants, whether they are immigrant of the first generation or third generation, they are all mostly immigrants. So a survival of a country depends on people and population. If you don't have people, you cannot have economy, you cannot survive essentially. Right. So that was essential for each of those first world countries that you mentioned, maybe Europe and America. But essentially what is happening as their population reaches to a certain level, they don't need those many immigrants anymore. They still need some, but not that much. So that's why the events, and it's simply a supply and demand. When they need less number of people and they have, like, for each space that they have 1,000 applicants, they raise the bar and make it more difficult. So that is what's happening overall. But as you said, Canada, on the other hand, is the biggest country area-wise after the USSR demise. And as I was explaining that a flight from one corner to another takes 8 to 9 hours. So it's crossing Atlantic is shorter than crossing Canada. And on the contrary, the population is very small, only about 35 million. Right. So for huge natural resources, huge land, and very small population. So ultimately, they need people badly to, it's not actually something on the side. It's immigration is the survival for
Right.
Canadian economy, because if they don't pump in new people, new blood every year in the economy, they cannot sustain. So that's why no matter which government, either liberal or conservative, they are all for immigration. Okay,
Right.
they have their different ideas, no doubt, but nobody can deny that they need immigration.
The
So
importance.
that is the reason, and that's why they have 300 or 300 more than 300,000 individual uh,
Wow.
immigrant targeted for every year.
Right. Um, and you talk, it's a very positive, of course, impression for all those listening and viewing that there are so many possibilities. But when you talk about the individual, how do they know? How does this individual know that they are fit or they will be allowed in?
Yeah,
Is there some criteria?
yeah. So look at from the Canadian perspective. As I said, they need people.
Mhm.
But what type of people? So they basically look at their economy, their demography, their local situations, and
Right.
based on that, they actually set targets. So they know that they need investors, they need entrepreneurs, they need
Right.
skilled, high skilled, semi skilled, low skilled
Mhm.
individuals. So they
Absolutely.
target each of those and devise programs for each of those categories of immigration. So
Okay.
there is a department of government at federal or provincial level which design a program based on their immigration needs, and based on that they see that which type of individual should be an immigrant. Based on
Right.
that, they they basically decide the eligibility criteria for each and every program.
Hmm.
So there are about more than 50 programs,
Wow.
and each and every program would have an input, meaning what type of people can apply into that program, which is
Hmm.
called eligibility factors
Right.
that are commonly known as age, your qualification, your experience, type of experience, things like that, or your
Right.
net worth. If it's in the investment category, how much
Hmm.
investment you can bring, those kind of thing. So,
Hmm.
so there are programs. Programs have eligibility criteria. It has a defined process, a timeline, and an outcome.
Wow. Hmm.
So,
So,
to nutshell, in the nutshell,
mhm.
all type of people are required in Canada.
Right. So you shouldn't basically listen to somebody else's story, sad story or success story, and think that it can be your own, right? We're talking about an individual person to person assessment. No
Yeah,
one story fits all.
yeah. So that's why instead of throwing 50 programs to you, if you are interested and I try to explain 50 programs to you, it will all cause a confusion. So,
Absolutely.
so the best way to do is, and that's how we do it, is that we take the individual who is interested
Hmm.
and look at his or her features, which are the eligibility criteria
Right.
factors, and see that individual fit in which program. An
Hmm.
individual can fit in one program, or more than one program, or maybe no program. Okay. So we clearly, honestly, and transparently tell that individual that you are eligible for one or two or none. Based on that, they can proceed further. Number two important thing to understand is that eligibility is the basic threshold or the
Hmm.
bottom threshold of to get into that program, but not necessarily you will get the immigration. So possibility
Right.
is something different than eligibility. So
I
if you
see.
are barely eligible for a program, it does not mean that you will actually get the immigration. So
Ah.
on our part, we not only tell the individual the basic eligibility, whether you are eligible, or not only that, but beyond that, we look at the possibility. So we sign up only those who are not only eligible, but actually the chances of their getting immigration through that particular targeted program are very bright.
Good, great. Yeah, that would of course make the outcome much more promising for them. I feel that
Yeah,
the vetting process would be a good way to give them a realistic
yeah,
idea of what
yeah,
their future is going to look like.
yeah,
Yeah. So it does sound like a long process though.
yeah,
I feel it would take time
yeah.
and it requires a lot of patience.
Yes. So that is the thing that you need, patience, a lot of patience. You mentioned the people's stories and all that. Uh, Basically, first of all, no two cases can be exactly the same.
True.
And number two is that people's understanding about their own case sometime and most of the time is not accurate.
That's true too.
And number three, as people don't necessarily tell you the real story.
That is absolutely true. I
Yeah.
agree.
And so basically, you should not be trusting anyone. As I said, the system itself is transparent and fair. If you want to check anything, you have to, or you should basically go to the program official website,
Right?
and almost every program has everything available transparently to the public. Check
Right.
everything from there.
Perfect. So
So,
absolutely.
so you said patience. So the processing time, remember, there are a lot of people ahead of you. It's a government department that is processing your application. They have to meticulously check each and every application and every aspect of it. It takes
Mhm.
time. So, and it's not like people have a tendency that, oh, I have applied. Now they have an obligation to, call me every day and tell. This doesn't happen.
True.
So it needs a lot of patience, and a lot of people complain like they don't get any feedback, they don't have any news, because once they are processing your application, telling you takes another time. So they don't bother about that. So you have to have a lot of patience. But have faith in the system. Once you are properly in, you will get through.
Perfect. Yes, that sounds like the perfect combination, right? Even something to live by. Have faith and be patient. That I think would work well in every department of life. Now, just to help all of our listeners and viewers ensure that they're not falling prey to fraudulent agents, is there any way that they can ensure that they don't get involved with the wrong kind of people?
Yeah, as you know that the Canadian immigration is very popular, and a lot of people want to go to Canada, and that gives a good kind of a business opportunity to the individual, and fraudulent opportunities
Mm-hmm.
to exploit those people. And this was the case mostly a few years ago, when anyone can start business in the Canadian immigration business. And
Wow.
after thousands of complaints, the Canadian government decided to actually look into that. They looked into that, and they actually legislated
Mm-hmm.
the Canadian immigration business. And now only a person who goes through certain education experience, and going through the character verification and all that, can get the immigration consultant license. So they actually
Wow.
built a organization called
Mm-hmm.
ICCRC, Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council, which is turning into a college, like College of Physicians that you guys have.
Wow.
And yeah, a person who is practicing immigration law, he has to be a member in good standing of that council.
I see.
And there is a website, and that
Mm-hmm.
you can check, put first name and last name. They will tell you that individual is in good standing, because not only license, but you have to maintain that license every year.
Right.
You have to be at that moment in time, you have to be a member in good standing. And there is a
Right.
good code of ethical conduct
Mm-hmm.
that we need to adhere to in every step of the process.
That sounds really very reliable. I mean,
Yeah,
I
and
feel,
and one thing I would like to add is that
yes.
the people who are not regulated or
Hmm.
not licensed, we call them ghost consultants, and they can
Right.
harm your case big time because
Great.
it also involves misrepresentation. So
Hmm.
if you are like a lot of people do that, unfortunately, in good faith, they don't even know
Hmm.
when they sign their form and they say that because the individual would ask you to take the column where you say that okay, nobody helped you and or nobody charged you
Hmm.
in helping your application process,
Right.
and that turns out to be misrepresentation later on.
I
And
see.
Canadian immigration and the whole process can be reversed if they found out later that you paid someone who was not authorized.
I see. So if you are approached by a ghost consultant, they would, one of the markers would be that they would want you to leave their name out of your application. So where it
Yes,
says,
yeah,
did somebody help you put forward your application?
yeah,
They would say that, please don't put our name down. And
yeah,
that would be an indicator that they're not authorized and that they're
yeah,
not
yeah,
legit.
yeah. And because
Right.
they are not authorized to represent you, they are not recognized in Canadian government immigration system, they cannot put their name.
Oh, I see.
So
And then
now, yeah,
that
so
could lead to poor outcomes. Even if the case goes through, you're saying it can be completely reversed?
reverse if that is found out later.
Oh, I see. Well, that would be a tragedy. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
wow.
So there is a name and number. So the that is verified by the government because we are registered with them. So any
Mhm.
application you need to put our name and number. That's how
Wow.
they.
So they have put in good measures now to
Yes,
prevent against fraudulent activity.
yes.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Mr. Zia, for enlightening us and clarifying these points. I think they're very significant. And it's a good place to start for everybody who wants to become Canadian and is looking to come here. And everybody who's watching and viewing, you know what, we're going to put some information in the bottom of this video so that you guys can get in touch and have further help from Mr. Zia if you guys are thinking of starting your Canadian journey. Because if you are going to do it, it's best to do it right. Because if you get involved with the wrong kind of people, then everything can go to waste. So when you start right, have faith in the system, and have patience that the outcome will be what's the best for you. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll come back with further such videos to help you on your journey.
Thank you very much. Bye.